Good morning. This is Faith in Our Hometown, brought to you as a community service and sponsored by Mercy Hospital, Joplin. And now, here's your host, Father Jay Friedel.
Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to another Sunday morning at Faith in Our Hometown. We're glad you've joined us for another one of our weekly conversations, and we're grateful that you're here. I'm always grateful anyway, and I'm always grateful when I hear some of you out. My favorite one from a couple weeks ago is somebody heard my voice, and they said, "You sound like Father Jay." And I said, well, there's a good reason for that, because I am Father Jay. I was out by the trail, and somebody heard me talking to the person I was walking with and said, "You sound like Father Jay." And she said, "I listen to you all the time, but I don't watch very often. I've just got you on Sunday morning," which is fine by me. But we're grateful. For whatever reason you're here, we're going to have a conversation this morning about, again, how faith in our lives kind of intersect. Because my guest this morning is going to be Viel, who is the general manager for Colaw Fitness. Full disclosure, I have my membership at Colaw, but this is actually going to be my first conversation, really, with Trey. And we're going to be here to talk about how where faith and fitness kind of intersect. So grab your cup of coffee or whatever you're going to do this morning, settle in, and we're going to be right back after this Mercy Minute.
The whole purpose of screening is to catch people who have a significant smoking history early enough where we can do something about it and potentially improve the duration of life. The minimum recommendation for screening is 30-pack years. So usually people who've smoked more than 30-pack years are the ones that we're screening. If we start screening yearly with low-dose CT scans, we can reduce the risk of death from lung cancer by 20 to 25%. Stage 1, 2, and 3 cancers potentially can be cured. When it becomes stage 4, the possibility of cure falls significantly.
Well, again, thanks for joining us again this morning for Faith in Our Hometown. My guest, Trey Viel of Colaw Fitness. Trey, let's first tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about Colaw, and then we'll talk a little bit about our topic this morning.
Certainly, yeah. So I have lived here in Joplin for about 5 years now. I moved here from Bartlesville, Oklahoma, where I grew up. I was born in Tulsa and grew up in Bartlesville, which is where Colaw Fitness actually started. So we had our first club open up in 2005, and we started building here in Joplin in 2015 as our second location. So for us, it was a really special place for us to not only grow the business, but also kind of grow into who we really wanted to become for hopefully decades to come. So my own experience in that, it started just as a job that I had in college. I would work kind of in the evenings a couple days a week. But I just kind of fell in love with the culture of the business, the role that it took not only in the fitness industry, but also in just the interior lives of its members. And that was really important to me.
Yeah, well, I find it interesting. I mean, I catch a little bit of Christian lingo around, and I certainly like, some of the approach of, trying to provide water for people in the world who need it and all those kinds of things. So, I mean, I knew that there was a conscious or a mind behind it, but in all honesty, I got my own full-time, Christian gig, and I really haven't dug into that. But why is it so important to the company?
Yeah, so for us, we have this mission. Our mission is to make Jesus famous and to change lives. That has really been at the heart of who we've been for the past 15 years. And so whether it was in the living room of our founders, Charles and Amber Colaw, or in a multi-million-dollar facility, that same mission undergirded everything that we've done. So we are always looking to give back to our communities, and through the love of Christ that we experience on a day-to-day basis, that really fuels what we do and allows us to really take care of our communities. So we do, like you mentioned, give back to build water wells in the areas that are lacking in clean water.
There's lots of those in the world.
Certainly. We're hopefully just making a small dent in that with working with some great organizations around the world. But secondly, each club, each location has its own kind of local service that it does. So, for example, our team goes and serves at Water Gardens once every couple of months just to serve dinner, really try and take care of our community in that way as well. And that's something that's really important to us, even though it might not make the most sense as far as business goes sometimes, but that's really important to who we are at Colaw Fitness.
Well, I'm one of those people that believes that faith it's supposed to be lived in all those different aspects of life. I mean, now, I mean, granted, look at who I am and what I do, but I think it's important. And I, one of the things that I didn't do in my life, in the early part of my life, and I was 27 years old and falling apart before I finally realized that if I did not take care of myself physically, I could be the most spiritual jock in the world, but my body was going to die because of chronic hypertension and obesity and all those kinds of things. And so I had to, at the age of 27, had to start working out for the first time in my life. Because right after I was ordained and moved to Springfield, my weight ballooned and I was a mess, okay? And so I had to learn how to do that for the first time. And at that point in time, I went to St. John's Fitness Center, which is now part of Mercy, Springfield. And then they sold that part of the business. But I had to go and learn how to work out for the first time. Because again, I had to learn to start, so I've only had, about 35 years, if you will, of trying to, well, probably not that many, but yeah. But I mean, a little 30 plus years of trying to work on me. Yeah. And realizing that I had to do that. So it's an important thing. So for people who take care of the physical all the time, that they run around and take care of the spiritual once in a while, I'm all for it. I just think those things kind of have to be connected. And so even though it may not be part of the physical fitness part of the plan for you all, I respect the fact that you're also saying, but wait a minute, we're also people of faith. We also do things for the community. We do those things. And so I'm happy with that. I'm so happy that I can help support that by being a member, if you will.
Absolutely.
I mean, that makes me happy. That makes me smile. So for you, I mean, you just started out as a part-time job, but now you're into this whole thing of trying to get people to look at those pieces of their lives. How's that worked out for you? I mean, do you see this as your calling now? Do you see this as just what you're going to do until you figure out what you're going to do next, or what is it all going to be?
So one thing that, from my own personal experience, that I've sort of the lens that I've looked at the future through is that we plan well, but we hold onto the future loosely. And so it's, I had different plans for my life. If at that time, 5 years ago, I probably wouldn't have guessed that I was still at Colaw Fitness. But slowly over time, it's become something that I've just fallen in love with. I've fallen in love with the people that I get to see on a day-to-day basis who are making those realizations in their lives, where they kind of awake to themselves a little bit and realize their value inherently, as beloved of the Lord. And so for us, that's such a rewarding experience to be able to see people kind of go through that and come through our doors, kind of like you had mentioned, one day finding themselves all of a sudden, facing unhealthiness kind of at their door, and the results of that. And then being able to come in and not only work on their physical health, but through that getting to experience emotional, mental, and spiritual health as well. So that's something that has just, in my own personal experience, has been incredibly rewarding. Just coming in, and it really makes the sort of grind, I suppose, of the day in and day out of, okay, we got to make sure that this place is clean. We got to make sure that we're smiling and greeting people well. It really makes it worthwhile in that regard.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting to me. I love the philosophy, and again, most of your staff don't know who I am or what I do. I mean, they have no clue.
Yeah.
But it's just kind of entertaining for me to just kind of go in and watch it, kind of like as the, as if you will, the lurker, the bystander, just from the elliptical, and just to watch and see how
high
things
vantage.
happen. Yeah, exactly. But I find it interesting that. I have watched some of the things on the screens and watched people, some of those testimonies about people saying this is what's made a big difference in my life and doing those kinds of things. I mean, I'm going to tell you that I am probably, now I look like, I was once in shape and am now out of it, as opposed to where I started 27 years, when I was 27 to where I'm now 59. So what is it, 32 years? Now I can do the math.
Yes.
It took me a little while.
I'm right there with you.
So in that context, for me, I'm probably in better shape than I've probably ever been.
Yeah.
And I will tell you that I've got some survivor's guilt during this time of plague, because I've got more time to work out than I have in years. Yeah. Usually I only walk. The only time I can ever take the time to walk 5 miles a day is when I'm on retreat. But it's happening more days than not now. Now I used to try to get in 3 when I was on the elliptical or whatever in an evening in an hour.
Yeah.
Okay. Everybody worries about 4-minute miles. I worry about 20-minute miles. Okay, so, but I mean, with that, I got to say, I'm doing better now, you know, because I've actually got more time than I did before all this craziness came along. How are you making a difference in the life of other people? Because I mean, mine's just one story, and you guys weren't, you guys have just helped me this last couple years, okay? But how does that work for, the general person who comes and joins? How do you do that for somebody?
So really, the first step is say if you look at things like AA, the first step is admitting that there is something wrong, that there's an issue in whether it be my physical health, my mental or emotional health, whatever it may be. First coming in and recognizing my habits are not creating in me the person that I want to be 30 years from now, which I'm sure that you could relate with, at being 27 and realizing one day, this isn't who I want to be.
I was dying. I was dying.
So you make a change, and that's kind of the first step, is really bringing that to attention with in truth, but also in grace and in patience, recognizing that it's not an overnight journey. For a lot of people, I mean, just like you said, it's been 32 years, and you're finally feeling the best shape that you've been in, kind of in that time. So we see that with a lot of people. They've built up habits that have brought them to a place they never expected to be, nor do they want to be in. But then we're going to be the ones to step in to help empower them to not only create different habits, but to have hope for their future moving forward, that this is something that is achievable. We really believe that change is only achievable if we really believe it is, if it's possible. And so if people don't have a hope for that future and they just think that they're always going to be living in this unhealthy box, then not much is probably going to change. So we try to give people hope just whenever they come in, just recognizing that the work that they're doing and encouraging them to continue to do that, and to really just celebrate with them the results that they're seeing day in and day out.
It's interesting, and for me, I guess I'm at a different spot there, because I'm certainly not starting out now the same way I was. My whole goal in life, I mean, people just say, well, how much do you weigh? I was like, my only goal is to weigh less now the rest of the time that I exist. It took me, many, many years to go this way. And now my only goal is, I don't care how much I lose, but my goal is not to go back that way again, but to keep going down, to keep doing what I need to do in that regard. So I mean, I don't worry about weight. I don't get on the scale but once every 2 or 3 weeks, just to make sure things are going. But as long as my blood pressure, I mean, I got to stay. My blood pressure's got to be in a certain range. My blood sugar's got to be in a certain range. All that stuff. And as long as all my numbers are golden, the triglycerides stay right, and it's all everything. Just then my doctors look at me and go, "Good job, good job," and life's working. But I know that in order to do that, I have to continue to be physical. I have to continue to move, and if I don't move for more than 2 days, I start to feel like I shouldn't anymore. I have to do that. So this has become critical. I mean, and that was a big way of changing thinking in my life, but it's what I had to do. So my guest this morning is Viel, who's the general manager of Colaw Fitness here in town. And so we're going to be right back after a quick break to continue our conversation with him.
You're watching Faith in Our Hometown on KSN TV, brought to you as a community service and sponsored by Mercy Hospital, Joplin.
Well, again, thanks for joining us again for another Sunday morning of Faith in Our Hometown. My guest this morning, Viel, who's the general manager at Colaw Fitness, which is basically on the corner of 7th Street and Rangeline, although a little off there, but what the heck. That obnoxious color of green and the blue that I just said. I like the blue, the green. Oh, I tell you what, nothing that's not a natural color, I think, should be in all that. But at any rate, it's your color scheme. So God love you. But at any rate, talking with Trey about how life and our physical selves and our fitness come together, and faith. How does all that come together in a synergy for you?
Yes. So one thing that I think that our culture really focuses on a lot is the separation between our body, our heart, our mind, and really tries to break those apart in a way that traditionally I don't think many people have, and in a way that I don't think is helpful or true. There was a study done after the events of 9/11 where survivors who went on to live successful, happy lives were asked, what was it that really helped you get through this season? And of course, most people would expect therapy or counseling because it's a mental stress or mental anguish that they're going through. However, the top 3 most popular responses were yoga, acupuncture, and massage. So it just goes to show that we're not just a person with a body that's not connected to our mind or connected to our heart. It's all interlocked in a lot of ways. So what we see at Colaw Fitness is people come in and they are carrying their stress inside of their body, or whatever burdens that they're experiencing, it is experienced still within the body. So whenever they start to exercise their body, feed it well, get plenty of rest, drink plenty of fluids, they start to see even mental or emotional positive effects that kind of come along with that. And that's really important to us to kind of bring forward to the table, and to not say, you only need to work on your body and that's all we're here for. Which unfortunately is a huge aspect of the fitness industry. We don't really focus on the mental or emotional aspects of exercise, but
and I'm going to throw spiritual in there because, well, I just have to.
Absolutely, and that's so much of what we're about is that as we start to build up the temple that is our body, we really start to open ourselves up to so much more of experiencing, I guess, just abundant life that Jesus promises us. And so that's one thing that's really important to us is just making sure that those are always connected, that we always have those in mind as not separate entities or separate parts of us, but that we are just a whole person who is experiencing life in this kind of unified way. And so whenever, say, there's a spiritual issue, it also arises in our body, or if there's a physical issue, it takes a toll on our emotional side. So all of those things kind of go hand in hand, and that's something that we bring a lot of light to.
The analogy that I always use, and I've used this in many of the Lifetime Fitness classes at Missouri Southern, because I usually come in and talk about spiritual health. Okay, it's one of the gigs that I've done for several years, both at Southeast Missouri State and where we used to call it lifestyle enhancement.
Yeah.
And here, which is Lifetime Fitness. So my brain gets mixed up once in a while. But I talk about, like, for example, the stools we're sitting on, the chairs we're sitting on, now 4 legs. Now, can you sit on that chair if it only had 3 legs? Yeah. But how hard would it be? Because you'd have to spend all of your time, your energy, compensating for the leg that's missing. And if you learn how to live as a whole person, putting all those pieces together, it's a lot easier to stay stable. You don't have to, so you can stay stable for a while if you've got 3 legs, if you're only doing that. But what happens then if you start to fall asleep? Well, you wind up on the ground. And that's what was happening in my life, 32 years ago. I was about ready to wind up on the ground because I couldn't sustain it. I had a great emotional health. I had great, spiritual health. I had great, intellectual prowess, whatever that means. But I had it. But where was I physically? And my body was not going to sustain that for me. So I had to learn how to keep that more in balance. And so it's in better balance now than it's ever been. But it's always a work in progress.
Certainly.
I mean, you stop working on any of those levels, and I'm going to guarantee you pretty soon you're going to be leaning on that stool or that chair, and you're going to have problems after a period of time. And that's, again, my very strong prejudice in that regard. And so, again, I used to teach a class at Southeast Missouri State on spiritual health. And the reason my students wanted it was because they kept saying, "You're the only one that's talking about this stuff with us.
Man.
You know, will you teach the class? So I had to design the class and then teach it because they were trying to say, you know, people will teach us how to do this in, you know, in health, human performance, and recreation. People will teach us how to do this in kinesiology at Missouri Southern. They can teach you how to do the body, but nobody's talking about the spiritual health. What are we going to do that? You know, they're talking about our mental health and our emotional health, but what about the spiritual health? And so I had to find a generic way of doing that. Because I mean, I could do it easy from the Catholic vantage point, but I had to learn how to do it from one step back, so that I could speak everybody's language to some degree, so that I could also then have the right to speak my own in my own silo. But then, how do you do all that? So I'm a believer. I mean, you know, it's just been a while since I've had a chance to get on the soapbox, you know, here. You know, so thanks for coming on here so I could get on my soapbox.
Anytime.
Oh, thanks.
Anytime.
Thanks, I appreciate that. So Trey, so how do you see this fitting in with your own life? So I'm just saying, give a little bit of your own personal testimony in terms of how you see yourself as a spiritual being who's now running a fitness center. How does that work for you?
Yeah, well, I think that, so I think about kind of what Paul says as we kind of force our flesh to train as a discipline. Yeah. And so I think about all of these metaphors all throughout the Bible of training our bodies for the race ahead of us. And I think that can go in all these different categories that we are listing, sort of spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical health. And so in my own experience, seeing myself as a spiritual being, working in a fitness center, you know, I grew up in a tradition that was very much, there's holy occupations and there's secular occupations. you either work in the church or you don't, sort of a dichotomy, which, I think I look back on that, and who in the early church was working for the church? Very, few if any.
It was just life.
Exactly.
We turned it into a profession.
That's exactly
Some of us
right,
actually get paid for it, but hey.
Dream. That's the dream.
Exactly.
And that's just the reality of the world that we live in now. And so trying to change the mindset or trying to change the worldview to one where it's now focused on, it's not the name of the role that I'm in, it's the function that remains in it. So although I'm a manager, my responsibility is still to, make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, training them to obey all that Jesus commanded of them.
I love this because you never once have preached to me when I've walked in the door. Now, most of the time you don't work at the times that I'm working out, but I'm just saying, you and none of your staff have ever preached that to me. But what I love is the fact that that's actually a goal of yours.
Certainly.
Without ever necessarily using his name, it's still your goal. And I love that.
Yeah.
I think that's the way faith is supposed to work. Not that we take the Word of God and beat people over the head with it, but that we live it and we enflesh it and we make it real. I love that. That is fantastic.
And that's such a huge, just desire of myself and so many people on the team, especially at a corporate level. Everybody that really leads the company, that is their heart in what we're doing. So, we might, it can always look nice on a marketing campaign to say, hey, we give back to communities, or we're building water wells in Africa and things like that. And it can look good on paper, but when we really stop and think about what our mission is, it's to make Jesus famous and change lives. Now, our realm might be a little bit more towards the physical side, and we accept that. We're not the church, and we believe that there are people who are better equipped to really assist people in that spiritual health aspect of their life. But we're there to empower them as much as we can, and to point people back towards Jesus, even in regards to their physical health, which we certainly believe that God is in all things, so therefore God is in our physical health as well. So we can experience Him through our bodies. We can also learn more about ourselves, and in the meantime, we're learning more about Him. And so we're really trying to turn people not only just towards physical health, but also just inward to experiencing life just in that way. And it's it's a really rejuvenating process, and it gets me and the rest of my team really excited to see whenever people do get to experience this sort of new, abundant life that they really didn't even think was possible before.
Yeah. Well, my guest today is Trey Viel, who's the general manager at Colaw Fitness. And we've been talking about the intersection of spirituality and health. And Trey, I just want to say this is one of those moments when I'm doing an interview where it's just like, I'm going to say this, I'm going to say it with love. And I hope all of you out there that are listening to this, just like, you know, I'd be so proud if I had helped raise you. Okay? Because I think you've got it. I mean, I think you've got some of the secret that I see to sharing that gospel message. I don't have to make everybody Catholic in the world in order to do it. But I believe in who I believe in, and it's changed the way I see my life and the way I go about it. And I believe that you're a kindred spirit in that regard. So it's been a pleasure talking to you this morning. We're going to be right back after this Mercy Minute, so don't go away.
Lung cancer is the leading cause of cancer deaths in the U.S., and now we have an effective tool to screen for it. A low-dose CT uses a lower amount of radiation than a standard chest CT.
Breathe in.
Better detailed pictures than a chest x-ray of small abnormal areas of the lung. A person must be between 55 to 77 years old, asymptomatic, which means they don't have any symptoms such as coughing up blood, chronic cough, shortness of breath, unusual weight loss, or any other worrisome symptoms. They must also be a current smoker or have quit within the past 15 years, also must have a 30-pack year history or more, which equates to smoking 1 pack a day for 30 years, or 2 packs a day for 15 years. People generally avoid these scans possibly due to fear of what could be found. Like many other cancers, if we can detect lung cancer early, it could be very treatable and life-saving.
Well, I have had a ball this morning. I love it when the conversation comes together. You have no idea where the conversations are going to go on a show like this. But I love talking with Trey Viel today from Colaw Fitness. Again, I go in that building, you know, almost every day because I have to take care of myself physically. And I had a chance to connect today on a level that matters to me. Because we had a conversation about how we connect and how we're really trying to build up people and build up people's lives. Both of us out of love for Jesus, for us, but for any of you that have any other faith, whatever that happens to be and however you happen to claim it, however you happen to live it, then go for it and let's continue to build each other up. That's why we do this show. That's why we continue to intersect in life. That's why we continue to hold out for each other and make this and the greater Joplin area a place that matters for people of faith for all of us. So again, thanks for joining us. Join us again next week for Faith in Our Hometown. God bless you. Have a wonderful Sunday.
Thanks for watching. Faith in Our Hometown can be seen Sunday mornings at 6:30 and 9 a.m. on KSN. Brought to you as a community service and sponsored by Mercy Hospital, Joplin.